And the reality is, yeah, it's less transparent at this point. What could fix the problem easily is just tell the MLSs, okay, just expose what the co-op is. Make sure that it's not private, have it be public so everybody can see it.
Welcome to Supply and Demand with Adam Nadler. This is a podcast dedicated to the real estate market in Canada, available now on YouTube, Apple Music, and Spotify.
Cheers, bro. Cheers.
So this is a super unique opportunity because you're not in Toronto too often. I mean, you're actually here more often than a lot of Americans, I'm sure, but you don't live here.
That's a good question now. I feel like I do now.
Yeah.
I've been here quite a bit. I don't live in Canada. I live in Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C.
How do you like it?
I love it there. My family raised there. My parents moved from Michigan to Maryland back in the mid-'80s. And that's what brought us there originally. So, yeah, grew up there. I've been very happy in Maryland. I met my wife in high school. So we've got some history there.
Nice.
Actually, it's interesting. My in-laws only live maybe half a mile apart from my parents. So,
Wow.
grew up in the same area. Our kids, Danielle and I have two kids. Landon's 14. Gabrielle, she's 11. We're in the same school district that myself and Danielle actually went to high school. So my son, our son, Landon, will be going to Quince Orchard High School, the same high school that Danielle and I graduated from.
Are there still some of the same teachers there?
Oh, yeah. Same teachers. Most of them, actually, a lot of them are clients. So it works out pretty well.
That's awesome.
People have said to me, wouldn't you want to send your kids to private or anything else? No. I said, why would I need to do that? And I said, I've got more contacts in my own high school, so it's no reason to send them to private. So I figured I might be biased, but I think I turned out okay. So I'm comfortable with them going there too.
Well, dude, yeah, you're like the authority on real estate in my mind when it comes to things that are happening in the States, and there's a lot happening in the States. You guys just had a massive dollar settlement for $400 million or something.
418 million settled.
Over the next 4 years.
The next 4 years.
Okay. Tell me about this. There's been headlines here. People are talking about maybe it's going to happen here. What exactly happened in the States and why did it happen?
Well, without going into detail about what happened, what I can talk about what the verdict was and what was agreed upon as far as the settlement. There's going to be more cases that open up, copycat cases or whatever. But there was a case brought to NAR, National Association of Realtors, as well as the brands from Anywhere, American Home Services, and or Home Services America, Remax, and Keller Williams. And it was basically around the idea that there was distrust, lack of transparency, steering based on commissions, and the idea that it was never negotiable to be able to negotiate commissions, forcing sellers to have to pay a co-op to a buyer's agent. The reality is, I don't agree with the verdict. I don't agree that there was anybody trying to hide anything intentionally, but I support the decision. I'm not concerned about it. But the main core reason of the verdict that came about was that it's going to affect two things. Number one, is real estate agents as of July will no longer be allowed to advertise a cooperating co-op to a broker.
In the States.
In the States. And second to that is, what's the other? I'll repeat this again, so it helps the podcast.
No, it's all going to be going edited.
Oh, you're going edit both?
Yeah.
The biggest thing is when it comes to the agents is that agents can no longer advertise their co-op on emails. I mean, that's what it is. But I don't have a problem with that because what in fact would happen is even in Canada, when you guys offer a co-op on the MLS, who sees that co-op?
The agents.
Agents only. So it's kept private. So it's only the broker section that can see what the co-op would otherwise be. Same thing in the U.S. The only person who can see it is the agent. Now, in Canada, you guys took a step further for properly disclosing how people are being compensated. I'll go back to the problem in a second. In Canada, when you guys do a contract, ratified contract, both parties, all parties have signed this contract, everybody knows. The seller knows exactly what the buyer's agent is being paid. And of course, they know it because they're the ones that agreed to that into the listing agreement itself. But then the buyers, they also know what their agent is being paid, as well as what the listing agent is being paid.
Correct. Yeah.
See, in the States, that's not the case. In the States, the contracts that the buyer and seller both sign, nobody has any clue. Now, the seller knows what the agent's being paid because they're the ones that offer the car. But the buyers have no clue what their buyer's agent is being paid. So the idea of steering came around to that, where there is a potential where if a buyer is looking for a house, we know that 100% of all buyers shop one place and find a house, and that's online. So they call that agent and say, hey, I want to go see these 5 houses. Well, the agent is quick to say, okay, well, I'll go show you those 5 houses and boom, boom, boom. But the agent is aware before they go show these 5 houses what their commission that they're going to be paid on out of those 5 houses. We'll say one of those commissions is significantly less than the other ones. Could the agent then dissuade that particular buyer on that property because of the lack of commission? Where there's potential there. That's not how I practice my business. It's not how you practice your business. But that was the theory, that they could be swayed or steered into a different direction based on the commission that they're otherwise receiving. So the lawsuit, the verdict is stating that now we have to and should no longer advertise what a buyer agent co-op would be on the MLS.
So that doesn't make sense to me, because shouldn't it be that more transparency would be the solution, not less?
Well, as I mentioned yesterday, I did the podcast, yesterday with Richard Robbins, talking about Canada, the U.S., and how it all, flowing together and what impact it will have in Canada. And the reality is, it's less transparent at this point. What could fix the problem easily is just tell the MLSs, okay, just expose what the co-op is. Make sure that it's not private, have it be public so everybody can see it. Well, that's one fix. I'm not here to fix the MLS. I can only control what I can control. But that's the thing. We as agents no longer advertise on the MLS what the co-op otherwise is. But I can advertise it on my platform, Final Offer. I could advertise it on my brokerage page. I could advertise it on my personal page. I just cannot advertise it on the MLS itself.
So the entire workaround for your industry in the States is just going to be one extra click to go to that buyer's, that agent's website.
Yeah, because the agent won't be able to know what the co-op is unless they call the agent and ask, or go get direct to their personal website or whatever.
So nothing's been solved.
Other than, no, it hasn't fundamentally really changed anything other than just that. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions in the marketplace because, of course, all the headlines, the clickbait from all the media right now is commissions are going to be going down. You no longer have to pay an agent. Commissions are now negotiable. It's the end of 6%. Like, these are the headlines, which is all BS. Because the reality is, you and I both know, commissions have always been negotiable.
Of course.
I like when I hear that, I've been selling real estate personally for 23 years. I've grown up in a real estate family for 35 years of my life. Commissions have always been negotiable.
Well, what it sounded like to me, or at least my perspective on the headlines and the articles that were coming out, is it made it sound like there was collusion between major brokerages on what commissions should be. And to me, I looked at that and I said, well, that makes no sense, because it's not like if you're at the same brokerage as I am, that we're not competitors, that we collude with one another. It's not true, right? Even if we're at the same brokerage, we're still competitors. So it's a completely decentralized market of agents where each individual transaction and each individual client relationship is negotiated with each individual agent. There's no actual basis for any of that to be true. And if it was true, then we wouldn't all be competitors, right? So I didn't understand it.
Well, that is the truth, right? So, but here's the perception that the attorneys were able to create around that. They were able to create a perception to the jury that, see, you have the National Association of Realtors. Okay? That is the member. That's what we have. The membership is for ethics and we can best represent the consumers, the marketplace. That's NAR, National Association of Realtors. So I'm a member of NAR, as it is 1.6 million members. If you're a real estate agent, you're also a member of NAR. And some MLSs require, multiple listing services, require, in order for you to be able to use the MLS, you have to show evidence that you're also a member of NAR, which is held to account for certain ethical standards in protecting consumers. Nothing wrong with that. Well, because the MLS had a private uh, advertising of commissions just for brokers to see where consumers couldn't see it, they were able to connect that lack of transparency as far as what agents were being able to be paid as something that we would collude together within the supervision of NAR within the industry to artificially inflate what commissions would otherwise be. That's what they were able to piece together and be able to present that to the jury and cause the verdict to ultimately close. It, to your point, it makes no sense because it's open competition, right? And when sellers meet with me, I have to prove my value of what it is that I would otherwise give to that particular seller to earn the commission that I otherwise receive.
Correct. It's cost and value for cost. It's the same thing if you're going car shopping or anything else.
It's in lack of value, then always going to come down to price. And there is no shortage of discount brokers that are in the market. Sure, you can hire an agent right now before this lawsuit. You've been able to do that for years where you can hire an agent for a flat fee. You can choose not to hire an agent at all, just be for sale by owner. That's totally fine. Like there's nothing stopping anybody from doing that. You got agents that charge one thing, you got another agent that charges another. That's fine. That's always been the case, always been negotiable. What our job is as agents is to educate the consumer to what they think they know, but they don't know in a marketplace where they have access to everything. Right? So how can we truly position ourselves as agents to show them the value that we otherwise provide that allow us to earn the commission that we receive? And that's an important thing. It's unfortunate that in our industry, if you look at 1.6 million real estate agents that were registered within NAR in the U.S. In 2023, the average agent sold 1.8 houses in 2023. That means that the average agent that's affiliated with NAR sold one, or half of the agents that are affiliated with NAR sold 1 or 0 houses in 2023. See, consumers, they're convinced that us as the name real estate agent, that we're all the same. Now, we're not the average agent that sells 1.8 houses a year. There is a major difference between the agents that are actually doing business and truly serving their clients compared to the part-time agents that are on average selling 1.8 houses a year, which represents 50% of our industry. That's scary. So also consumers in their mind, if you were to ask a consumer, who do you find to be more trustworthy? Is it a used car salesperson or a real estate person? Who do you find more trustworthy? When you compare the two, consumers rank a used car salesperson more trustworthy than that of a real estate agent.
And maybe it has something to do with the higher risk and higher price tag on things, right? Like there's a lot more at stake. Whatever it is, at the end of the day, there's always, like every industry, going to be a Pareto distribution of how many units are sold by how many people. You're always going to have that Pareto distribution. And within that Pareto distribution, you're going to find who, or at least the market will dictate who the true professionals are. And at that point in time, that's where you can at least delineate, as a consumer, where you're going to get better service. Because the market's going to flow in the path of least resistance. And when I mean resistance, I mean things like corruption and things like, people who are not truthful, people who are not doing this with the idea of longevity. It's easy to get somebody to compromise on legalities or integrity or anything like that if they're looking at that transaction as the one that they do this year, and it's a fallback career because that's their side hustle, and they've also got an actual full-time job. Whereas for people like us, like, I'm not gonna risk my license for one deal. Like, that's crazy, This is a full-time job, is what we do. So I think that has led to a whole bunch of bullshit, basically. Just people running around doing stuff. They're in the industry they shouldn't be, and a lot of, at least here in Ontario, the barrier to entry has been so low for so long. It's led so many people into the industry because, let's be honest, AREA, whoever it is, that's a cash grab for them. They love selling these licenses, right? So at the end of the day now, I think we're getting to somewhere where the people who are going to adopt and quickly adopt the new concepts of added transparency and not reject them or not be fearful of them are going to succeed. And that's why this is actually so poignant that this happened now, and that you're actually pushing forward a platform that provides greater transparency to the entire marketplace. And I know I've had you on before, but my viewers are kind of like scattered. Like some people will have seen that one, most people have not who are watching this one. Explain to everybody what it is that you're now working on, that you have now brought successfully and launched in Canada, in Ontario, with our new changes that came in, I think, December of last year, where we now can have open auction platforms, and you're running one of them. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, so yeah, the premise of where we saw a need for final offer to be brought to the marketplace was because of the lack of transparency in our industry. And the reality is, with the more transparent you are in how you do your business, that equals trust. And so, where you see some resistance just overall in the idea of transparency, yeah, there's some resistance in the marketplace based on that. You have to ask yourself, why are certain agents so resistant to transparency? What do they have to be afraid of? I'm not afraid of being transparent. You're not afraid of being transparent, because we know we serve our clients the way that they deserve to be served, and in the best way possible, to making sure that they're taken care of. Would suggest that agents that don't want to be transparent may not serve their clients the way they otherwise deserve to be served. I don't know, but there's a question to that. There's been many studies. Most recently, Korea did a study back in 2021 that studied, the differences between an open offer versus a closed offer. The study was done for two reasons. One, they wanted to see if you have an open offer process, does that actually benefit the seller by having it open or closed? What they found is that it was significantly that by having an open offer process, open negotiation, the seller benefited tremendously with a better price and better terms. The other reason we did that survey is there's a concern as far as the affordability, housing affordability in not only Canada, but also the US. And the concern was, okay, well, this creates a problem for affordability. If you have open offers, it's going to be less, it's going to become even less affordable for the people to be able to buy, because by having open offers, it causes people to have an opportunity to buy the house that they want, ultimately, which is allowing everybody to have a fair chance to be able to achieve what it is they want. And so, final offer, it came about because, sorry, I keep getting the buzz here in my book here. Final offer allows us as agents to negotiate our real estate transactions with complete transparency, but it also includes the buyers and sellers. So unlike some of the other platforms in the marketplace, you've got auction platforms, then you got offer management platforms. None of them, one, require agents. None of them also allow you to be able to negotiate with complete transparency. You've got some platforms right now, there's platforms that are offering auction experiences. And an auction experience, for as good as it is, you can set the price and the terms and you just let it run, and whoever has the best price and terms is the winner. Well, that's fine. But any time that you're in a real estate transaction, there's way too many dynamics that occur within the act of negotiation that would dictate what is going to create the very best package for that of the client that you're serving. And in an auction platform, our hands as listing agents are completely tied to where there could be certain conditions that are being brought up in that auction that we could not assess in the beginning that came about through the act of negotiation of the property. And with auctions, we can't step in.
So it doesn't give enough nuance.
It does not. It does not. Also, with these auction platforms, they also do not require agents on either side of the transaction. You can choose to do it for seller owner. You can choose to do it with just a listing agent and not have a buyer's agent. It's more or less another platform that is being created to try to replace us as agents. Then you've got other platforms that are so-called offer management platforms. And an offer management platform, in theory, is supposed to streamline the offer process, making it easier for us as agents to manage offers as they come in. But these offer platforms, what they do is they require us as the agent, as offers are received, we now have to take the offer and then manually load it into a system, which basically just presents it in a pretty way for us to deliver to our clients. Well, that's fine, but why is it any different than like an Excel spreadsheet that we can just do on our own? it is just another added level of things for us to be able to do. So what Final Offer does is we've been able to take all of these different elements to create a tool, as I said, for us as agents to use to not only be able to negotiate the transaction with complete transparency, but also to efficiently manage the offer process, making it streamlining the process, not only for ourselves and our teams, but for our sellers, but also for the other agents and buyers involved, keeping everybody informed in real time as offers are received, what the offers are, once it meets a seller minimum committed offer price and terms, which I'll explain. It gives everybody a fair chance to be able to compete.
And a lot of people I'm sure are going to poke at the fact that with Final Offer, you have to have agents working on both sides of that transaction. And that was something that I actually had someone ask me about. And my response to them was very simple. It's like, do you really want no safeguards? Like no kind of regulatory agency that is overlooking a particular industry and has those people liable and accountable to make sure that that platform is running properly. Like think about it. If I think about this, if I'm a seller, I want to make sure that the people who are actually bidding on my property on that platform are represented by people who have an interest in making sure, both on the liability and financial side, that they're actual buyers, that they're actual people who are qualified to purchase a home, that I don't so-called sell my home and realize that there's no one there. That person just like took off, or like that whole exposure to the marketplace was a fugazi, right? For lack of a better term. And on the other side, that there's a seller on the other side who's not nefarious as well, and who's playing by a certain set of rules, at least, that are being watched by a particular person who is within a regulatory framework. And that's essentially what agents are. We're taking on that liability to make sure that that's what's happening.
Yes, but we should be there as an advisor, as an advocate, as an advisor, to see that their clients are protected, and make sure that everything's seamless, right? That they have somebody that they can ultimately rely on. Now, why people challenge that goes back to what we were talking about before, because they don't have high expectations in general about real estate agents. Right? Rightfully so. Like I said, 50% of our industry sold 1 or 0 houses in 2023. So you're going to get questioned on that. Why do I need to be affiliated with an agent to protect me? I can protect myself, right? Well, that's where us as agents have to step up and show our value. Because if we're not providing or educating that consumer to what they think they know but they don't know, we don't provide value. And they want buyers to be their advocate, to be there to make sure that they're protected, somebody that they can rely on. With Final Offer, you've got to be associated with an agent. Okay, so that's something important that I want to decipher there. Like I said, in order to use Final Offer, you got to be associated with an agent. What I mean by that is, in order to list a property on Final Offer, you've got to use an agent to list the property. So that means that you're hiring a listing agent to list the property for you on Final Offer. That's one part. It comes to the buying side of things. If a consumer is on Final Offer, they identify a certain property that they like, and they want to make an offer on it. They click on a button and say, we'd like to make an offer. Well, the first question is asked on Final Offer is, are you working with an agent? If they say yes, okay, great. They can type in their agent's name, email, phone number, whatever, and then immediately they're connected to their agent. But if the answer is no, that they don't have an agent, then immediately that lead goes directly to the person that deserves the lead, more or less like a sign call. That lead goes directly to the listing agent. Now, the relationship that this lead has with the listing agent is not a level of agency, because who does the listing agent represent? They represent the seller. Right? What we're saying is this buyer is choosing to come in unrepresented, but yet still being attached to the listing agent. Make sense? So it gives the ability for that buyer to be able to make an offer because they're connected to the listing agent. They can't come in and say, I don't want to be connected to anybody, because by default, it's always going to go back to the listing agent. Right? Once again, saying why this platform is not a platform to replace us as agents. It's a platform for us to use as a tool. Right? But in order for that buyer to be able to make an offer, even though they're unrepresented or not, connected to us, we still ask them to go through certain levels of pre-qualification to ensure that the offer that they're writing for us to present to us on Final Offer is actually legit. So I'm doing my due diligence on behalf of my client as a seller, as a listing agent, to make sure that any offer that I receive not only is financially qualified to be able to make an offer, but we verify that. Right? So we do those due diligences so that when I'm presenting an offer to my seller, it's not going to be a fake offer. This is a real person that is qualified to be able to make an offer on your home.
And so, in terms of the actual, I keep calling them knobs and dials because I don't know how else to refer to them. But basically, in so much as negotiations actually happen, and when those negotiations happen, I've been doing this for almost 10 years now, and there are so many different tricks and tools of the trade that you learn over time that help you to negotiate, right? And in this platform, you actually provide all these different options that are now adding to the level of strategy on a whole nother level that I was always, I guess I never really thought about it in the sense that it was something that we just had to deal with, that, we didn't understand what true price discovery looked like, and we didn't have the tools to affect that in a, I guess, like a dynamic way. But now you're providing a platform where there's more than just a list price. There are tools and strategies and different numbers that you put out there to the market in order to facilitate dialogue through offers rather than just talk. And we know how that was for years. I mean, that's just been talk is cheap. Someone calls me up, they're poking around this and that. And what do we say at the end of the day? Put on paper, right? Talk is cheap. But now you're giving us more of those knobs and dials. And that's what I really wanted to get into here, because I know agents are going to be super confused by this, because I have a listing right now and I'm about to load it into my offer. A big advocate. So, for everybody watching and listening, like, cards are out there. I love this and I'm going to be doing this. I have a place right now on the market. It is overpriced. I know it's overpriced. It's power sale. I had to do that for legal reasons. Now I need to price this thing properly and use the different knobs and dials that you are providing with this platform. How would you play this? I mean, I have a place listed for $560 right now. I know it's not worth that.
Yeah. So I want to start, I'll help reverse engineer that, because that's such an important part of it. But before we get there, I think it's important to understand this, that agents for so long have been able to get away with being so-called order takers rather than a negotiator. Well, what's an order taker? An order taker is somebody that said, okay, I'll list your house. They put it on the market and they sit back. Maybe they do some marketing, whatever, that's fine. But they just sit back and wait and receive offers. And then maybe they get one offer. Maybe they get multiple offers. Whatever it is, they go and they put them on the table and say, okay, this looks like the very best offer. Seller, this is the best offer. Let's take that. Well, you're just an order taker. You just took offers and you said, okay, here, sign this. It seems like the best one. What final offer does, it allows us to go to the table, to meet with the seller, and understand at a deep level, not only what are they hoping to get for it as far as a sales price, but what kind of terms and conditions are important to them to make sure that they have a seamless transaction. With final offer, we're able to be in a position to truly listen to what it is their needs and wants are, and be able to reverse engineer a strategy that can ensure that I can now position myself as a negotiator to make and create the opportunity for them to get the ultimate goal that they want to achieve at the very best price and the very best terms. But final offer allows me to do that because while that is happening, we're able to now dictate that and show that to the consumers and say, this is what we're looking to get, which is so powerful because in the market that we're in today, it's a fluid market to say the least. We can see agents and sellers list properties that say, let's say they list them at $1 million. Well, if somebody lists a house at $1 million and you received an offer today for $1 million, the seller is not required. The agent is not required or obligated to accepting that offer. Far too many times we see agents list properties at, say, $1 million, receive offers of $1 million. They won't accept that because they've made unrealistic expectations to the seller and say, oh no, we're just going to list it at $1 million, but we're not going to take anything because really we're trying to get 1.3. Well, that's a conversation you have with your seller, which is fine. What about all those buyers that are actively looking at your property at $1 million, expecting that if they liked your house, then your seller would ultimately accept $2 million. Well, that's not being honest with the population. That's wrong.
In fact, it's exploitative. It's worse because you're leveraging the fact that you're going to have lowball offers in a blind bidding situation and leverage the true buyers who understand the value of lost out a couple times. Like, you're going to leverage those lowball offers against that person without them knowing that those are not even real offers.
You're being completely dishonest. And that's yet another reason why there's an issue in the marketplace right now. Consumers are demanding two things. One, they're demanding that we speed up the offer process. We can talk about that later. But second, what they're demanding is transparency, because they don't trust the process. They don't trust the industry. And that's why they're forcing this into the marketplace, right? Being that transparency is critical, which I stand behind. I believe in that because, like we've talked about, transparency equals trust. My business is based on trust. My relationships that I have with my clients, over 78% of my business comes directly from my past clients and referrals. Every time I meet a new client, just like you, we put a reputation on the line every time we meet somebody new. If anybody has a bad experience working with us, I know how that has a negative impact on my business. I take my relationships and my reputation, like you do, very seriously. So with Final Offer, we're able to be transparent. We're not hiding anything. Now, like us, we have a good reputation in the markets that we serve. So if I tell somebody, certain things, they're like, no, Nathan's a straight up person. He's telling us the truth. But see, now with Final Offer, I not only have to say it to them, but I can also show them in real time that this is what the seller is looking to receive. Right? So with Final Offer, because we talked about it shifts us from being an order taker to a negotiator. You mentioned different toggles on what we can open up and exposing certain values and how you value certain conditions, how you what the seller wants as far as a closing period, what a seller wants as far as a price. We'll talk about that in a second. But we're able to do that so we can negotiate the very best price and terms for our seller. But before we get to all that, what I've found to be so interesting as I travel all throughout North America and share Final Offer and all the tools and techniques that you can use in the negotiation when using Final Offer, is that at the core, Final Offer is a great tool to negotiate with transparency. There's no question. The results are clear. But what Final Offer does not fix is it does not fix an overpriced listing, right? And I think it's so important to understand that because before anybody uses Final Offer as an agent, as a tool, we have to get clear on the value of the property. So as you know, if I'm meeting with a seller for the very first time, I want to understand from that seller, what are you hoping to sell your house for? They may tell me whatever. You may say, hey, well, that's why you're here. So go ahead and tell me what you think it's worth. That's what we have. And I have to tell that seller that the reality is I don't get to pick the price as the agent.
That's one thing that I was so interested by in today, because I already knew about Final Offer and different things like that. But the one fundamental thing that I think today really clicked was the idea of price discovery and the fact that agents, like doctors, take an educated guess as to what the value of a home is.
Yeah.
But we don't market test the data before we put it out there. We take our best guess and we go for it.
Well, that's the thing. It's, as I was sharing, when I meet with the seller, I want to understand what their expectations are clearly. So I ask them, what are you hoping to sell your house for? In discovering that, they may tell me a price. They may say, hey, Nathan, that's why we had you come over to the house. So you could tell us what the house is worth. And I have to educate the seller and say, I appreciate that. But the reality is, myself as a listing agent, I don't get to pick the price. And unfortunately, my sellers, they don't get to pick the price. The price is solely determined by what a buyer is willing to pay. You hired me to make sure I put you in the very best position possible to expose you to as many qualified buyers as possible. Because when I can expose you to those qualified buyers, then we're in a position where they would otherwise compete. Getting buyers to compete for your property will ensure that you sell your home for as much money as possible with the very best terms. Without competition, you're not setting yourself up for the very best outcome.
And people hate competing.
The buyers will, of course, because they realize and they're having to compete, they're going to have to pay a premium in order to earn the property that they ultimately desire.
And I feel like the friction on wanting to compete has to do simply because they don't know what they're competing against. But I feel like with this, it's totally different. I'm happy to compete if I understand who and what my competition is.
That's right. And that's where we found so much value, because how many times have you represented a buyer where they were having to compete on a particular property. They ultimately said, we're only willing to go to this amount. And that's fine. You listen to what they said. They went to that amount. And then a month later, they find out the property closed for maybe $5,000 higher than what they said they're willing to go to.
Well, for you guys, a month later. For us, it's like 2 days later.
Or 2 days later.
And then that open wound, you pour salt in that hurts.
And say, wait a second, if I would have known that, I would have paid $5,000 more. Final offer, because we're exposing that. It gives everybody a fair chance in order to compete. But when it comes to market value of a property, before you get into the pricing strategies, market value is determined by what buyers want to pay. And so many times the market that's as fluid as we're currently in, agents will show up on a listing appointment with the seller and say, but here's the last sales over the last 6 months. Equal, size, location, neighborhood, features, upgrades, mix, what have you. Comparable sales. And they say, well, Nathan, I want 1.325 for my house. You can see my next door neighbor, they sold at 1.3 last week, and my house is nicer, so I want 1.325. I said, I appreciate that. I want to get you at least that, if not more. That's what I want. I said, but here's the thing. Do you know what your neighbor was listed for to be able to get them to 1.325? They were listed at 1.1 million. And by them listing their house at 1.1 million, they were able to demand 20 offers that came in on the house. Out of the 20 offers that were received at 1.1 million, only probably a few of them, maybe 2 or 3, were willing to even go as high as 1.3 plus, causing that one buyer to pay 1.325. See, I understand it's a bit deceiving. You say, no, well, the next door neighbor sold at 1.3 last week, so mine must be that. No, the neighbor priced their house at 1.1 million. It was at 1.1 million that they found a market that caused 20 people to be able to compete against each other, causing one person that was willing to pay the 1.3. Well, the other ones, they were probably willing to pay 1.1, maybe 1.15, maybe 1.2. So finding the market is so critically important. And I find that it's about having enough wherewithal, education, specializing in particular areas that we can have these conversations with sellers to educate them on the value of making sure we price it right the first time. Because at the end of the day, I don't pick the price, my seller doesn't pick the price, so the market's willing to pay. So how can we position it in a range that attracts as many qualified buyers as possible, getting them to compete? So with final offer, you may have, I've got a flight.
Yeah, no, good. I understand this is like a last minute podcast. Whenever you need like bounce, we'll just end it.
Probably you bounce now, but what would you like? What part do you want to close with now?
Just like the whole minimum seller committed price, and I know I'll probably take it on with like 3-4 minutes to explain, but basically that's where things get interesting, because I think that's where we're going to stop seeing the radical underpricing and in this market, which has been super annoying for everyone.
Well, final offer, you have the ability to use 3 different pricing strategies. You got a list price, which, as we've established, a list price is just an advertising price. Okay, so at what price are you going to build enough traction on the property to get people to want to see the house?
Right. It's your marketing tool.
That's a marketing tool. With final offer, you also have an opportunity to have the buy me now price, which is the final offer button. If somebody clicks that button, they can take it off the market immediately. So when you pick that final offer price, you make sure that is a dream price for a seller. A price in terms of seller said, hey, look, if somebody wants to hit that button, they can take it off the market right now. They don't have to compete. So make sure that when you pick a final offer price, make sure it's not too low. So the last thing you want to do is have a conversation with your seller that you underprice the final offer button. But you also don't want to make it too high, because when somebody hits the final offer button, they're usually assuming the home not only at a great price, but they're buying it as is, no inspections, no financing. But then you also have something called a seller committed price. The seller committed price is the price in terms the seller is stating that if somebody gives me an offer that meets this price in these terms, I as the seller will commit to exposing that offer for a set period of time, which is determined by you and the seller. And if within that window of opportunity, the clock will start and the days will, tick down. If no other offers come in by the deadline at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, that seller will commit to accepting that offer. Now, during that period of time that the offer window clock is open, it allows everybody to see the offer that met that seller minimum committed offer price and terms. And if they want to make an offer, they can then make an offer for at least 0.5% higher than the offer that's currently on the table. And every time a new offer comes in, anybody that is watching this property can see in real time as offers are received. Give them an opportunity to be able to compete as well if they like. And while that is happening, we then have those conversations with those buyers and the agents to say, yes, this will continue to go until the deadline. But at any point in time, you just said, can't take this anymore, you always can control your own destiny by hitting that final offer button. Be able to control your outcome. Otherwise, you continue to bid it out as with everybody else and see, whoever at the end of the day has the very best offer, very best terms that the seller values will be the winning offer. But people can have certainty that the seller is going to make a commitment if it meets or exceeds that seller committed price. Anything that comes in less than the seller committed price, it is not exposed. It does not open an offer window. And it does not commit the seller to having to accept anything. So as an example, if some house is listed at $1 million, you got a seller minimum committed at $1,025,000. If an offer came in at $1 million, it shows up as a proposed offer. The buyer's agent both know with certainty that the offer was received on this day and time, and it was sent immediately to the seller and to the listing agent. But it's not exposed, shows up as proposed. As a proposed offer, the seller can counter it if they want, but it doesn't commit my seller to have to do it.
I know that you're on a short amount of time here, and I appreciate it. I know this is like a super last minute podcast. We're going to have to do this again.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate your time in all of this. And I think that just going over this again and again is actually helping me also understand how this is all going to be explained to both buyers and sellers, because this is going to be so new to our marketplace that I feel like it's going to take some time for adoption to become a little bit more prolific. And I wanted to give you a quick opportunity. Where can people find you? Where can people find Final Offer? How do people learn more about this? And how do people find you?
Yeah. So I'm Nathan Dart. I'm the Senior Vice President of Growth for Final Offer. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook at Nathan Dart, or Nathan P. Dart on Instagram. But you can email me at nathan@finaloffer.com. As well as just go to finaloffer.com. You can book a demo, just through Final Offer if you choose, to get any information that you would otherwise need. But I think would be helpful for you, for your viewers, for anybody else. I think how do I explain what Final Offer is to a client, to an agent, to anybody else? I can share what it is that I explain and how I introduce it to my sellers.
Oh, I'd love that.
Yeah. So if I'm taking an initial call for somebody that wants to list their house, I schedule, of course, the appointment. And I let them know that in addition to everything that I'm doing, as far as marketing and the process and everything else, I use a platform called finaloffer.com. They say, tell me what finaloffer.com is. I let the seller know at that point in time that Final Offer is an offer negotiation platform. It allows the buyers, the sellers, and the agents alike to be able to negotiate their real estate transaction with complete transparency. Now, why is that important? Well, it addresses some major concerns for all parties. The number one concern for a seller is what? Well, the number one concern for sellers, they want to ensure that they sell their home for as much money as possible for the very best terms and conditions. But what I know is that it is, one, impossible to underprice a property, that the only way that a seller can get the offer that they ultimately want to receive, or the very best offer, is by demanding competition, because it is with that competition that we demand that we get the very best price and terms for our clients. So when we can attract that competition and do it within transparency, it also helps the buyer. Because what's the number one pain point for the buyer? Buyers, they don't want to feel like they ever overpaid for a property. But if a buyer can see the exact offers that they themselves have to compete against in order to earn the property they desire, they will never feel as if they've overpaid for a property. Then you have the agents. The agent's job is to make sure that they create the very best experience possible for the clients that they serve. When their clients are asking, what do they need to do to improve their offer? What do they need to do to even have a fair chance at getting this property? Now, using Final Offer, they can set those expectations, not only for the seller, but also for the buyers that they serve, to say, this is exactly what you can do. You can clearly see it here, and help advise that buyer if they're making the right decision. It's for them to be able to decide. Agents no longer have to wonder when they submit the offer, was it ever received by the listing agent? Was it ever actually submitted to the seller? Because they'll know in real time that once they submit their offer, is immediately received by the listing agent as well as the seller, keeping everybody completely informed in regards to all the real-time offer updates and alerts. The results is that prior to me using final offer, my listings on average would sell for 107% of the original list price. Compared to that of the average agent in DC Metro, were selling the listing at 97%. I was doing fine before final offer. But now that I've been using final offer for the last 16 months, my average seller is selling their listings at 112% of the original list price, while still the average agent in DC Metro are selling their listings at 97% of the original list price. When my sellers understand that, they say, well, Nathan, help me understand, why wouldn't I ever want to use final offer? I said, well, what I found is, I guess if you're not interested in receiving 5% more money than what I could have otherwise gotten you traditionally, I guess final offer is just not for you. Now, I have many sellers say that they were interested in receiving 5% of what I could, 5% less than not using final offer. So I've had 100% of my sellers use final offer. I've been fortunate that since using final offer, I've converted 100% of the listing presentations that I've been on. And the satisfaction of my sellers has been at 100%. My sellers are thrilled to not only offer testimonials at any given time, but most of them, I say probably over half, have even offered to even invest in final offer because they see the benefit of how it's going to help the marketplace. So this is why we use final offer. Creates the very best experience, not only for the sellers and buyers that we serve, but also for the agents that we work with in our industry, bringing trust and transparency back to the marketplace.
God damn, dude. You're good. This is like unbelievable, like masterclass sales. Like this is so, it's like, it's so truly good. And the product itself, obviously incredible, but you're also amazing at explaining it. So, I mean, like, I don't know, man. Every time we hang out, I'm always blown away. You like present this in such an easy to digest way. And I'm super, super grateful that you decided to come today, present this, fly in all the way here to Canada, presenting this to our marketplace and actually giving us a better experience for both the people involved in the transaction as well as the professionals involved in the transaction. And yeah, man, you're a legend. This is I can't thank you enough. We're gonna have to do this again because I know I'm gonna have more questions, and I know it's a super complicated thing. It's gonna take some time to get used to. But yeah, I know you have a flight to catch, and I know you're a super busy guy.
Otherwise, I'll be staying here a little longer.
I'm actually going to email you as well. Probably my assistant's gonna be like gnawing at you a bit for whatever you use to present in terms of like if you have like a pitch deck or slide deck or whatever it is. To present exactly what final offer is and how all the strategy behind it works so that the seller can actually understand what this is would be enormously helpful. And I'd be happy to share that with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say this. All I do is I explain what I explained. Just so you heard that. It took 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it was. And then I also send them on the front page of the final offer website. There's a 90-second video. Just send them a 90-second video. Most agents make a mistake of just talking too much. So it's not that complicated. But I find agents, when they try to explain final offer to me, they have a tendency to talk too much about it to the point where I didn't understand what they're talking about. So it's simple. It allows us to negotiate a real estate transaction with complete transparency, giving everybody a fair chance to be able to compete for the desire.
Simple, effective. I love it. I think what you're doing is fantastic. I'm never usually this level of excited for someone like being on my podcast talking about something because it's always like what's happening with the market, what's happening with economics, Biden spending too much money, whatever, right? It's always like something like that. But this is fresh, this is new, this is interesting, this is going to change the game in my opinion. And I think there's no going back after this, so I'm really excited. I thank you so much for coming. I know you have a flight to catch.
Yeah,
I don't want to keep you, but thank you so much, man.
Hey, my pleasure. Well, thanks for having me.